Hey everybody, this is Oliver Davis from Windworks Sailing, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Saturday's Snowbird Race. We're going to be taking out Windworks Jeanneau 40.5 Rally Cap. We're rated for racing, and the Snowbird is one of the many reasons that Seattle is the sailing capital of the world, I think. You can race year-round here. You can actually race every weekend in February, believe it or not. The Snowbird Race is every Saturday from November through February, and it can be great racing, can be very cold, can be wet, and can be pretty windy. So feel free to bring all the warm weather gear and foul weather gear that you think you might need. I actually sometimes bring a double set of everything in case I get drenched. Boat call is 8:30 in the morning on Saturday on Rally Cap down at the dock. The boat is not going to leave the dock until a minimum as early as 9 a.m., probably a little bit after that. So if you're running late, no problem, we'll wait for you. We're going to head out, and during each opportunity, we're going to try to make every maneuver into a learning experience. So docking out is probably one of the easier things to do, maybe compared to docking in, but I think we're going to do it in a structured way, so every moment is fun, but also a learning opportunity. So I'll probably ask two of you to kind of huddle together and take a look at, where the dock lines are set, how the engine controls work, and give us a plan for how you want to get out. One of you will be driving, another one will be directing what he or she wants the rest of the crew to do with the dock lines. So we'll head out, and this is us coming out of Shoal Marina at the north end of the breakwater. Here's Rally Cap under power. The race start line area is over here, pretty close to the breakwater. We're going to have time, since we're starting early, to go do some practice sailing for at least an hour before the race starts, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, during the last half hour of that, our practice sailing might include practice crosses of the start line, just to get an idea of what the wind is right in that area of the start. But we'll just do some fun sailing, tacks and jibes, that kind of thing once we first get out. I'm going to ask a couple of people to tell us all the steps for raising the main. I'm not really looking for them to come in any particular order. I just want you to think of everything we should probably and definitely do for raising the mainsail in a safe and deliberate way. The boom vang is always one that I seem to forget. If you don't ease the boom can't lift up a little bit when the last bit of the mainsail is going up. So after we've done that, we'll unroll the jib with another team. We'll sail around, do some practice sailing. I think that the wind is going to be from the north for Saturday. That's what the forecast currently is looking like. And that sets us up for a race where we cross the start line and head north. It's typically what the first leg of a sailboat race is a beat into the wind. I imagine we'll probably go from the start line up to Meadow Point, especially if it's a light wind day. Now, the starting line buoy, some of you probably remember, it used to be a big white mooring ball that we called the hamburger. It's now a small white ball with an orange flag on it, but a lot of clubs use it as the buoy end of their start line. And here's the Sloop Tavern Yacht Club, or the Shoal Bay Yacht Club committee boat. It's actually going to be a small sailboat, 30 feet or so. And of course the start line is that imaginary line that goes from the start buoy to the flagpole, or one of the flagpoles, usually the race committee flag, on the race committee boat. North wind gives us an opportunity to do a start just like the one we were talking about with the diagram when people were sending in their ideas of where's the best place to start. I think what we're going to do this year that's a little bit different is, since we're going to get a good bit of practice sailing in, around 10:45 or so, I'd like to drop the sails. We've got that main bag that makes it pretty easy to drop the sail down. There won't be too much windage. We'll roll the jib up. And then I'm going to sort of want to motor around in the area of the race committee. Now, they'll be on channel 72, but they won't necessarily announce a lot of these things over the radio. And we've got two important things that we need to do as we're near the committee boat, ideally just sort of slowly puttering under power. The first thing we need to do is figure out what the course is going to be. And the race committee will have some placards that they hang really from the handrails on their coach roof, probably. And there'll be a series of letters that will tell us what's the course today, what buoys do we have to go around. Now, the starting buoy is always N. So a race from Shoal Shoal Bay Yacht Club, the first letter is always going to be N for the start. In a light northerly wind, I'd be pretty surprised if they do anything different than sending us to West Point, which is about a third of a mile to the north of Shoal Shoal. If we're doing a wind in a doing a race in a north wind, and we're heading to the north, we're going to leave all of the race buoys on our left side. So I would imagine we'll see a placard that says start and then W for West Point. And then maybe, that's my mistake. It's going to be the start N, Meadow Point M, and this is why two people are going to be assigned to the job of looking for that course placard, and somebody else is going to write those letters down so we get it exactly right. Start, Meadow Point, then sail downwind to West Point, and then tack back up to the finish line, which is N. We'll have that written on tape once we've gotten the course. The other thing we're going to want to do, and that's why we're going to be motoring in the starting line area, is we want to get that 5-minute horn that marks 5 minutes to go until we can cross the line and start our way up the race course. It's a small committee boat. Their horns aren't very loud. Their flags are pretty small. So I think it's going to be good that we're going to be motoring versus having to sail our way through boats and at the same time get the course and be right there to hear the horn, the 5-minute horn, and see the flags. The flags that go up on the race committee boat are timed to the horns, and it's actually the flags that matter, the time that they go up. But at 10:55 a.m., we should see our class flag go up. We are Class 1, and this is the number 1 pennant. So we should see this pennant go up. At the same time, we should hear a horn, start our 5-minute countdown timers on our watches, because that's 5 minutes to go to the start. We'll be really happy if we know we've got the time perfectly. From there, we'll put the sails up pretty quickly. It won't take much to do because we will have already practiced it. And we'll start sailing back and forth and figure out a good way to approach the starting line, considering the other boats that are going to be in that area. Right now we only have 2 other boats, so if the other classes, class 2, 3, 4, etc., do what they're supposed to do when another class is starting and stay out of the racing area, we'll probably have quite a bit of room to maneuver. But we've got to make sure that we're looking out for other boats. That's really important, especially Scirocco, the big Hansa. So the 5-minute flag goes up with the horn, 5 minutes, sails up. At 4 minutes, the prep flag goes up. And this is getting you ready for all the racing we're going to do on Puget Sound, because every yacht club does it this way, and some do it more precisely than others. But at 4 minutes, that prep flag goes up. We'll probably hear a horn at 4 minutes. We'll look over, 4 minutes, got it, 4 minutes on my watch. Nothing happens with flags and horns until 1 minute. And at 1 minute, the prep flag goes down. That may or may not be associated with a corresponding horn sound. But if we look over and we see that there's only the class flag flying, we know we're in less than a minute to go to the start of the race when we need to be crossing the line. Of course, if we've done everything right, we've got the time exactly on our countdown timers. And then, of course, at the 0 time, when we're crossing the start line, our class flag will go down, and class flag for class 2 will go up. Hopefully we'll be crossing the starting line and this will be way behind us when it goes up. But that's how you're going to look for your class if you might be doing a race where you're in class 2 or class 3. So we talked about starting a race, and if we do have a north wind for Saturday, knock on wood, some of the discussion that we all had about where's the best place to start on a starting line will be pretty much duplicated by where the committee boat and the buoy will be for Saturday. We tend to always call the right-hand end of the starting line the committee boat end, even if it's just a buoy. Usually it's a committee boat. And what several of you decided was that starting on starboard tack is obviously a good idea. Most importantly, we need to have a good buildup of speed. Speed is really important at the start. You always want to be going fast, but if you're a little bit slow at the start, when everybody's right next to each other, suddenly you've been passed by everybody else and you're last. Or correspondingly, if you're really good and fast, you can suddenly pass every other boat in the first few minutes of the start. So we decided that starboard tack is a good way to cross the start line. All else being equal, the battle plan always falls apart when the bullets start flying, but you wouldn't want to be this boat on port tack and trying to start the race for obvious reasons. Starboard has right of way. What we also talked about was the ideal place to be is on starboard tack right at the right-hand end of the line. Again, always with speed. That's very important. Because if we're the right-hand-most boat, then even if everybody else starts equal to us, we will be in a controlling position on those boats for at least a few minutes, because none of these boats to our left can tack and head to the beach, which is actually probably a pretty good place to go in a north wind when you're racing from the Shoal Breakwater to Meadow Point. We'll get to decide when we want to tack and head over to the beach, whereas we'll have the rest of these boats pinned and they won't be able to tack. Then I imagine we'll tack eventually and hopefully have a great short beat up to Meadow Point. Again, we leave all buoys on our port side. Racing involves purposely going close to buoys. Sometimes they're government buoys, not just plastic ones, and we don't want to hit them. So we're probably going to be pretty conservative when we decide when it's time to tack and head for the mark. We're going to get to the lay line, which is that line where the buoy is exactly 90 degrees off your side, which theoretically means you can tack and not have to tack again to get around the mark. But all boats make a little bit of leeway, especially when they're still getting up to speed after attack. The current, and we'll talk about the current tomorrow, the current might be pushing us away. So even though we're racing, we're going to be pretty conservative and hold our tack for the buoy a little bit longer. Some racers call that putting some in the bank. We're going to tack, we're going to head around the Meadow Point buoy, we're going to ease sails, and since we don't have a spinnaker, it's going to be pretty important to stay on a broad reach angle as we jibe back and forth to the next buoy, which will probably be West Point. This is a great angle to sail a boat in a no-flying sails class. And, you know, the fact that we're not using spinnaker is actually great, because when we want to jibe for strategy reasons, oh, there's an amazing puff of wind over here. Or when we want to jibe for tactical reasons, oh, there's a boat coming and we don't want to have them pass us, let's jibe and lead them into the shore. When we want to jibe for tactical reasons or strategic reasons, we just turn the boat. Pretty much for the whole 1980s, 90s, 2010s, the people that have won the America's Cup are people that have sailed a boat called the Star Class. And it's just main and jib, and that's how they got really good at tactics and strategy. So we'll sail the race. Everybody's going to be driving and trimming, and I'm going to try to leave the boat to you guys as much as possible, including making strategic decisions. We got some great sailors on the boat. I want you to do as much as you can on your own. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask questions. I've got a lot of knowledge, and in fact, I'll probably end up talking quite a bit. It's a pretty rare privilege to be on a race boat in a learning environment, and it is for me too, because I always learn something. On a lot of race boats, probably most of them, you don't really feel like you can ask a question. You feel like you should know. We're going to do this race, have fun, compete, sail, but at the same time, we're going to be learning from each other all day, and it's going to be great. After the race, just so we get the maximum amount out of our day, I like to do things like a man overboard drill or a reefing practice. Reefing is a really good thing to practice because the 40.5 has pretty much a similar reefing system to most of the other boats in the Windworks fleet. It's slab reefing, where you pull the main down about 3 feet. And we'll go through all the steps. We'll talk about what could go wrong. We'll see where lines tend to get snagged when you're reefing, on this boat or on sailboats in general. We'll talk about the steps, we'll talk about how we did, and then that day when you're out there chartering and you really need to reef, you're going to have the confidence, I've done this before, I know the steps, I know where the parts are that we might run into trouble. It's always great to practice a seamanship skill out there. Likewise, man overboard, or if the wind is light, maybe we'll head in and do some docking practice under power. We'll definitely swing by the pump out dock, and then we'll head back to our slip for some drinks and some snacks. It usually ends up being a really fun part of the day. It's just hanging out in the cockpit, just talking about the day, talking about the race, how we did, and maybe even talking a little bit about sailing adventures that we're dreaming of for the future. I've got a couple of them, actually. So I'm really looking forward to it. 8:30 boat call. Put some questions on the Google Docs, or if you just want to ask me a question and get an answer just back to you, you can send me an email anytime. I'm really looking forward to Saturday.